Well, okay, we're back again, and I'll cut right to the chase. There's a very interesting topic on MMA forums and amongst MMA people, and it's always to do with Rich Franklin. And a lot of people have come out and said that they think that Rich Franklin is overrated, that Rich Franklin was a poster boy and he was protected by the UFC. And the first time I remember hearing this was around the time he was the champion and Matt Lindland was around. And if you watch Lindland's documentary, they kind of touch on it quite a bit, that the UFC didn't want to put Lindland in there with Franklin because they believed that Lindland would beat Franklin, and he's not the kind of fighter that they wanted to push, market, promote, whereas Rich was, because he was this young, athletic, good-looking guy, well-spoken, and so forth and so on. And a lot of the overrated, protected talk seemed to stem from that time. And as things have gone by and as time has gone by and as he's fought more and more, and we have more of a body of work to look at, there seems to be this discussion still as to, is Rich Franklin overrated, or is he a very good fighter? Is he an elite level fighter, or where is he in the pecking order? And I know some people say that he's bordered being elite level to very good, and some people think, no, he's just overrated. And when I look throughout his career, I'd say it like this. When he's been in there with elite level guys, if you look throughout history, he's somewhat struggled against these kind of guys. When he fought Lyoto Machida in Japan, that was one example. Machida beat him. When he fought Vitor Belfort, it was the same thing. When he fought Dan Henderson, which was not a very close fight, let me think. Rich looked like he could get some momentum, but he just struggled to get it, and Dan edged him out. But in a 5-round fight, I think things may have been a bit different. But as I'm saying, again, Dan Henderson was another one of those guys you can consider, and he beat him. But then when you look throughout his career, and you look when he fought as a middleweight, some people would say that, that was when Rich was at his best. I remember when Rich fought Evan Tanner, and he beat Evan Tanner, and he destroyed Nate Quarry, and Quarry was looking at the heavens like the second coming had come. And when he was just killing guys at middleweight, and then Anderson Silva was coming along, and everybody said Anderson and Rich, they're very evenly matched, Rich might knock him out, and then that never happened. Anderson destroyed him, and then they fought again, and in between that he fought Yushin Okami, which is a solid guy to fight, and Anderson beat him afterwards in the second fight. And I think that this is why, this is where my view of it stems from. I think that Rich Franklin is a very good fighter, and I think he somewhat borders being an elite level fighter. I think that the problem is that he was in a division that was dominated by the great and incredible Anderson Silva. And when you've lost twice to the same guy decisively, that puts you in a spot where you might be considered a caretaker or a gatekeeper. And Rich doesn't want to be in that position. So, and the UFC didn't want him in that position. And he even said in an interview that it's not a good position for him to be in, where there are a lot of guys coming up at middleweight, and Rich beats them all but can't beat Anderson Silva. It's a very odd position to be in. And I think that that's what hurt his career. And then when he went to 205, I felt, I don't think it's the best idea for him, because he's a small 205er and he doesn't have the wrestling that a guy like a Rashad Evans, who's about the same size as him, has. And he will struggle if he goes in there with bigger guys. But let's see what happens. And when he's fought at 205, it's been mixed, because he looked good against Matt Hamill, and he wasn't overwhelmed by Hamill, but he did struggle against Henderson, and that was a light heavyweight fight. He fought Vanderlei, but that was at 195. He fought Chuck Liddell, but Chuck was not... wasn't the Chuck in his prime, is what I'm saying. And then when he fought Forrest Griffin, a guy that's not considered an elite level fighter, but a solid and good fighter, he was overwhelmed by the size of the guy, and it put him in this odd position as to, like, no one knows what to do with him or where he can go. And then he was supposed to fight the smaller Nogueira brother, and then that never worked out. Had some shoulder injuries, and then he went back down to middleweight. And again, it was, okay, well, what happens at middleweight? Because we all know we won't see Anderson Silva and Franklin fight again. And I think that the idea was that I think the company had prepared themselves for Anderson either losing the belt or moving out, and that's why Rich moved back down. And then he fought Vanderlei again in a rematch, and he almost lost that fight. And Chael lost to Anderson. And then Rich fought Kung Lee. And Kung Lee, Rich Franklin. This isn't Kung Lee in his prime anymore, like in his Sanshao days, where he was ripped and shredded and slamming guys around and throwing kicks and head scissors. This was a much older Kung Lee, and everybody thought that Rich would destroy the guy, given the size and the power of Rich Franklin in comparison to Kung Lee. And then the fight happened, and of course, Kung Lee won. And again, coming out of it, there was that discussion as to where is Rich Franklin really in this sport. I don't want to start talking about retirement. I don't really want to talk about that because Rich is susceptible to being knocked out. But the question or the thing that came out of it again was, is Rich Franklin overrated? And I want to know what people think. So I'm going to kind of stop there. I kind of said my thoughts on it. I think he's just in a very tough spot where it can't really showcase him. But do you think he's overrated? Do you think he was an elite level fighter? Do you think he was protected? Do you think he was a poster boy? You write your comments and you let me know what you think. I'm going to sit down, hopefully not wake up people upstairs. Hopefully people outside can't hear me, but I'm not going too crazy today, so I'm going to wrap up. You write your comments and I will look forward to seeing or reading what you type. Take care and bye.